Miami, Florida. The Cuban refugees of Miami are celebrating. Ever since Castro seized power in Havana, Cubans have flocked to the city. But life here isn't always a carnival. A few miles from the festivities, a body is hauled out of a canal.
This is a quilt.
Miami is hardly an American city today. South Americans from a dozen countries have come here in search of wealth and opportunity. The city is booming. It's booming for the homicide squad, too. They handle 10 murders every week. The detectives will probably never solve this murder, but they can tell from the style of execution that the dead man is a Hispanic killed by his rivals in the drug trade. Another victim of Florida's biggest business.
Last year in our community we had 580 murders. I know for people in the UK this sounds like an astronomical figure, but we're only talking about Miami. I would say 75% of these are narcotics related. We have auto thefts occurring. We have vessels being stolen. We have kidnappings, which is a new trend that we're seeing. What's occurring is people aren't paying their drug debts. People are, in essence, robbing other dope dealers of their narcotics and their money. And in retaliation, they're kidnapping these people, holding them for ransom. And if they don't pay up, they kill them.
The dope dealers murder their rivals and their women too. The victims are usually Latin Americans. But in Miami's drug war, there is another army. The cops who have to fight the dealers. Last year, federal drug agents arrested 1,100 major drug traffickers in South Florida. Most of the people involved in Miami's drug trade come from Colombia or Cuba.
I want two things addressed. Wait a minute. There's kids in there and everything. All right?
Let me get there, Paul. You get your bad hands. Oh, okay. Hey, back here. Right over here. Stand right there. All right.
You speak English? ¿Habla inglés? Okay, somos agentes federales. Okay? Cálmese.
In these plastic sacks, the agents found hundreds of pounds of marijuana destined for the streets of America's cities. Last year, government agents seized billions of dollars worth of drugs in Miami alone.
¿Tiene otras pistolas? No.
It's a dangerous business. Bulletproof vests are the order of the day for the drug agents.
The old man can say he's not involved. The old man, they said, yeah,
he had $1,000 in his pocket. Right?
This is what most of the killings are about. Cocaine.
You do a test on it?
No.
How many first time you gonna test it with?
Smell it?
Yeah. It smells weak, but we think it's coke.
Drugs are now the biggest moneymaker for America's criminals. It was different 20 years ago.
In 1965, I personally arrested a subject who had 17 marijuana cigarettes on him. It made headlines. They called the newspaper out. They called district commanders out, people to come see this large narcotic seizure. It is not an unusual occurrence in our community now to recover 20 tons of marijuana at one load. In 1965, we had 2 people working narcotics. At the present time, although I'm not exactly certain, I would venture to say that there are probably 500 investigators working nothing but narcotics in this community.
The drug war is fought far beyond Miami itself. Customs men are flying the latest military helicopters. For every drug bust, the crews paint another marijuana leaf on the side. Radar planes are now used to track the smugglers. Even the Navy has been called in to fight the biggest peacetime enemy America has ever known. Cocaine and marijuana, grown in South America, are smuggled into the United States from Colombia by sea and air. The main route is through Miami. It's the Coast Guard's job to stop the stuff reaching the USA.
Fishing vessel code. This is U.S. Coast Guard 629. I have received authorization from the government of Colombia to fire into your vessel to stop you if necessary. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand, Captain. I understand. I will wait for the Colombia Coast Guard.
A Colombian fishing boat has been chased by an American Coast Guard cutter for 18 hours. The Colombian captain tries to stall the Americans until nightfall.
Captain, I am not prepared to wait that long. If you do not stop your vessel, I will take action with gunfire to stop your vessel. Fishing vessel Tonay, this is Coast Guard 629. You have chosen not to stop your vessel. At this time, I am warning you that I am commencing to fire on your vessel. The first round will be warning shots fired forward of your vessel. Fishing vessel Tonay, this is Coast Guard Cutter Decisive, Coast Guard Cutter Decisive. Captain, that was your last set of warning shots. That was your last set of warning shots. As much as I dislike doing this, I am going to have to fire into your vessel. I will be firing into the after part of your vessel. I encourage you to have all personnel forward of the pilot house. Have all personnel forward of the pilot house. I will fire at your vessel only as long as it takes to bring your vessel to stop. I do not desire to destroy your vessel.
With their boat heavily laden with marijuana, the Colombians decide to take their chances.
All right. Getting hit. Got smoke. Got smoke. Woo! All right.
See ya.
Tell him to stop. Tell him to stop.
Que pare su barco. Pare su barco.
The captain pleads with the Coast Guard that women and children are on board his ship.
Please, stop.
Tell him to stop and I will stop.
Si usted pare.
She's stopping. Tell him that's a very wise decision.
The captain's decision was only forced on him by the shell holes which had riddled the side of his ship.
Vamos a abordar también.
In the captain's custody was discovered 20 tons of Colombian cannabis worth $16 million. Although the Coast Guard capture many smugglers, they estimate that less than 10% of the drug ships coming into Florida ever get caught. At Miami Airport, it's the job of the customs to stem the flow of Colombian drugs. Over 50 flights arrive from Latin America every day. Every year, customs men arrest 1,500 drug smuggling passengers.
Okay, babe.
Most of them try to import the drugs in their luggage. K9, the customs aptly named dog handling squad, have the job of sniffing the stuff out. They use specially trained dogs to detect cases containing cocaine and marijuana.
Find it.
The dog's find turned out to be 4 ounces of cocaine, worth $100,000 on the streets.
Come on. Let's go. Get some more. Come on.
But there are ways of smuggling in drugs that not even a dog can detect.
This is a 21-year-old man who was found dead in a motel room near the international airport here in Miami. We didn't really know much about him. There was a passport present there which indicated that this was a 21-year-old Colombian male who had recently arrived in Miami, and he had a ticket for Los Angeles, California. We brought him back to our office and did take one X-ray of his abdomen, and what we found were numerous foreign objects, as indicated by these arrows, rather dense objects scattered throughout his entire gastrointestinal tract. When I performed the autopsy subsequently on him and I opened up his stomach, we found numerous packets of cocaine inside this man's stomach. Altogether, we had 33 of them in there, and if you'll notice the white material here scattered around the stomach and so forth, that was very pasty white material. This was cocaine. What he actually had altogether was 64 packets of cocaine. The cocaine itself was packed in a thin plastic container and then wrapped numerous times with the tips of surgical gloves and then tied. And one of these broke open, which is actually what killed him. Altogether, there were 64 packets we recovered, totaling about 550 grams of cocaine, which we analyzed as about 85% pure. The total street value would be in the neighborhood of $25,000 to $30,000 had he been able to retrieve these and subsequently sell it to a wholesale drug dealer. Narcotics traffickers are reasonably sophisticated criminals who kill by the same types of methods. They're also very ruthless. They will think nothing, for example, of going into a house and simply executing everybody there. They tend to use machine guns. They can purchase them as semi-automatic weapons and in a few minutes convert them to fully automatic weapons, such as the MAC-10 or the MAC-11 type machine gun.
Colombian cocaine cowboys show no mercy. Many of their victims are tortured before being killed. Mass murders are frequent. Rivals and informers are all slaughtered, and often their families too. Valuables are left on victims' bodies to show they weren't killed by robbers. A woman has money shoved between her legs to brand her as a thief or a traitor. In the last 5 years, 2,000 people have been murdered in Miami, fighting over the colossal profits of the drug market. 57 tons of marijuana was seized from this ship captured off the coast of Florida. It was one of the biggest hauls ever. Had this cargo reached the 30 million Americans who smoke cannabis regularly, it would have made $92 million. In 1982, President Ronald Reagan went to Florida to pay tribute to the men fighting the drug war. Reagan claimed that $3 billion worth of drugs had been seized in Florida in less than a year.
Without your efforts, these drugs would have been on the marketplace, providing profits for organized crime, fueling the drug culture that has done so much damage to so many lives in our society.
At a U.S. Air Force base near Miami, the president inspected $6 million worth of seized cocaine, 7 tons of marijuana, and $4 million in drug money, which the president joked could be used in the drug war.
Which one of you is asking where we're going to get the money?
The president has set up special task forces of civilian and military personnel to fight the smugglers. This Miami warehouse contains $500 million worth of seized narcotics. The drugs have to be kept as evidence for years until the smugglers finally come to trial. Just storing and keeping guard over the contraband, worth more than its weight in gold, presents an enormous problem for local police and prosecutors.
I have a room where I can't put any more narcotics in it. One of the biggest problems that we now have, and has recently required legislation, is a 20-ton seizure, which is a shipload of marijuana. Up until very recently, we had to keep 20 tons of marijuana for trial. It became such a problem that we had no other places to store it. So what we now are required to do is take a small sample from each of the narcotics bales, and we're able to burn it. It's such a problem that we have to take tractor-trailer loads of marijuana on a monthly basis to confidential locations and then burn the marijuana, because other than that, we don't have anywhere else to store it. Cocaine, I've got a safe. I don't have any more room in my safe for cocaine. And ours is a relatively small agency when you consider some of the major police agencies, local police agencies. They've got a warehouse, a 3-story warehouse, which is just jammed full with narcotics and illegal drugs. They can't put any more in there.
100 miles north of Miami, the local incinerator was built to consume the rubbish of a thinly populated rural county. Now it's used to destroy hundreds of tons of marijuana every year. The marijuana burns at such a heat that the incinerator has to be doused with water to cool it down. But however much marijuana Florida destroys, local sheriffs and police are overwhelmed by the wealth and resources of the smugglers.
I would like to see us have the resources to combat these smugglers. They are well financed, and they just have us outnumbered, out-financed, and we simply cannot compete with them.
Every night, the sheriff's men patrol Martin County, Florida, by boat and car, looking out for drug smugglers trying to sneak up the county's creeks and rivers. They carry submachine guns to protect themselves against the smugglers. The sheriff has only one plane to patrol a county with a long coastline and many isolated airstrips. It's a smuggler's paradise. The sheriff and his men get wind of a drug delivery from Colombia. It's coming into a ranch in 2 planes. They capture one plane. The other plane is still waiting to land. The sheriff looks for the switch to turn on the landing lights. He orders the pilot he's already captured to talk the second plane down.
How about getting on that radio and talk that plane in? This is Indian Town. Come in. Come in.
Who are you calling?
Elliot, come on in.
You want me to go home?
Negative. Come in and help us with this engine.
What are all the lights everywhere?
Some assistance to try and help start the plane. We've got trouble with the engine. Will you come in and help us get out of here?
Okay, you gotta understand, I'm looking at about 5 vehicles.
That's affirmative. That's affirmative. They're ours. They're ours.
Okay, tell me who you're talking to.
Elliot, come on in, will you? It's Frank.
But Elliot never did come in. Suspecting a trap, he flew off with his valuable drugs cargo. Although one plane has got away, the sheriff has had a good night. He's made 3 arrests, and he's confiscated the drug smuggler's plane, a $400,000 aircraft he'll use against smugglers in future. He's also seized $500,000 worth of marijuana. It's high grade, a load that would have made the smugglers a 1,000% profit on the trip. Luckily, although both smugglers and deputies were armed, not a shot was fired. On an airfield near Miami, hundreds of seized aircraft are stockpiled until they're sold off at government auction. Every year, planes worth millions of dollars are confiscated from drug smugglers. It's said that some planes have been bought back by the same smugglers from whom they were first seized. Expensive aircraft are abandoned by smugglers wanting to make a quick getaway. They have so much money, they just buy another one for the next flight. One single journey from Colombia with cocaine aboard can pay for a plane many times over. At sea, cruise yachts fit for Monte Carlo millionaires have been captured with tons of marijuana and cocaine aboard. The smugglers also use speedboats that can outpace customs and coast guard vessels over long distances, just like the bootleggers used to do during Prohibition. These well-equipped boats can make the trip to Colombia in 12 days. Each successful trip is worth a fortune.
I think one of the biggest problems that we face here is that the narcotics dealers are making so much money that they don't know what to do with their money. As a result, they've bought land, they've bought businesses, and I'm very sorry to say, in many cases, they've bought the very people that are charged with the responsibility of enforcing the laws. They've bought law enforcement officers, they've bought judges, they've bought prosecutors, and they're buying the criminal justice system. Recently, we received information indicating that uniformed police officers were stopping people carrying narcotics, taking their narcotics from them, either for their own personal use or to be sold. And I say that this is a relatively small minority, but it's still a significant problem for us. In order to verify this information, we were able to put inside of a residence 5 pounds of high-grade cocaine. We watched as a uniformed police car drove up. Police officer got out of the car. A police officer with 10 years of law enforcement experience, a police officer making $25,000 a year, who along with another police officer, his boss I might add, went to the rear of this residence, broke in the door, and took cocaine valued at $7,500,000. Walked out to their police car and were in the process of driving away when we arrested them. From a professional point of view, our people were very elated that we were able to arrest these corrupt officers. From a personal point of view, it's somewhat embarrassing to stand in a residential neighborhood, remove a badge from a police officer's uniform shirt, and then take out handcuffs and handcuff a police officer and put him in the same police car to take him to jail that he drove up to a home to steal $7,500,000 worth of narcotics. This is an idea of what is occurring in our community, in our country, as a result of illegal narcotics.
In Florida, the drug dealers live like princes. Local residents in their luxury homes on Florida's Gold Coast are dismayed that drug dealers can now afford to move into their tropical paradise. South Florida's main business was once tourism. Its economy got a further boost from a real estate boom as people came south to retire. Now the region's main business is drugs, which have brought billions of dollars of illegal money into the economy.
There's only so many Cadillac cars you can buy. There's only so many $500,000 speedboats you can buy. And when you have a cloaker sack full of $100 bills, you got to do something with it. So narcotics has done something else. It has infiltrated the illegal financial empire. We have bankers. We have financial consultants who are now making millions by laundering illegal money. They take the money, they take it to foreign corporations, and they bring it back into our community in the form of, quote, legitimate dollars.
To expose this racket, government undercover agents set themselves up as financial consultants. They then secretly filmed Miami businessmen as they brought in $4 million earned from illegal drug deals. The businessmen thought the consultants were going to clean up or launder their drug money by transferring it to overseas banks.
Another 200,000 for one people and these will flow.
Let's keep them separate so that we don't confuse.
At first, to gain the businessman's trust, the undercover agents did transfer the money abroad, but when they were handed really big amounts of drug cash, they sprang the trap. After 18 months, the agents had enough evidence to arrest some of the most powerful men in the drugs business in Florida. 67 people were charged as a result of the operation. Many of the accused are Hispanics long established in Miami. They were not drug smugglers themselves, but it was alleged that they had laundered $19 million for the drug gangs and had made a fortune for themselves in the process. They included bankers, doctors, lawyers, even a county prosecutor. The large number of convictions in the case revealed a Hispanic criminal organization in South Florida with connections as powerful as the Mafia has built up in the rest of the United States.
We have a new type of organized crime down here. We have an element as volatile, as dangerous as the traditional type of figures, with structures as complex as the original type figures, whose primary business is no longer loan sharking, gambling, prostitution, but is strictly narcotics and its related crimes. They may be blacks, they may be Latins, they may be Colombians, with as sophisticated a structure as any organized crime family.
So do the Colombians, Cubans, and blacks represent a threat to the Mafia? Is the drug epidemic creating new gangster empires? Is there a new Mafia about to destroy the old? Heroin dealers on the streets of New York. Heroin doesn't come from South America, and the men who rule the trade aren't Hispanic. They're members of the Mafia. The heroin in the bag in this man's hand was part of a deal worth $100 million. Although the Mafia families claim that drug dealing is forbidden in their code, drugs have always been one of their biggest businesses. The Mafia bosses have controlled the heroin supply routes into America from the Middle East for the past 60 years, with only the occasional interruption. Today that control is stronger than ever. The heroin sold on the streets of America is worth $10 billion a year. On New York's Lower East Side, a hidden police camera films a truckload of plainclothes police as they raid a derelict tenement block.
And here is the Manhattan South Narcotics Office executing 3 search warrants in the building. All right, entering into the location, turning right.
The building has been taken over by drug dealers who've just sold heroin to 3 undercover cops. Both dealers and customers are caught in the raid.
Okay, we're still videotaping the contraband that was seized. Each one of these plastic bags apparently contains a marking on it, X times 100. Each one of them has a marking, X times 100. Apparently, each bag here contains 100 decks and hypodermic needles. The other bags contain tin foils, normally packaging cocaine.
Cocaine, cannabis, heroin. It all adds up to a business worth $80 billion across the United States every year. The profits are immense, and so is the cost in lives and human misery. This customer, his veins so injured and infected by heroin injections, may not have much longer to live. America's huge drug market has created organized crime gangs among blacks and Hispanics which are independent of the Mafia. But can they compete with the Italian-American crime families?
These people have no continuity. There is nothing there where they don't have any organization. Most of them are cowboys. They're not together. They don't have it together. They're new, meaning the last 10, 15, 20 years, where the Italians have their roots so deep. When you're going back 50, 60, 70 years, and they are more loyal to each other. The Italian people in organized crime are loyal to each other because of their way of bringing up and their growth together, where all these other people, they shoot their best friend just for a key of Coke. With the Italians, they wouldn't do this. And that's the difference.
Colombian crime family, the ones that are importing cocaine from Colombia into the United States, they do not have the traditional discipline and the organized crime structure of the 5 organized crime families that we have here in New York. And they lack in organizational structure, and they lack in discipline. And consequently, when they're involved in a problem, it becomes a very Wild West type of situation where many people end up getting slain, including families of the people involved.
Also, I mean, they don't have the layers of infiltration into the society as a whole, do they? They don't have the judges and the cops and the politicians.
Well, sure, they're very unsophisticated as far as the political aspects of this country, and also they don't have the connections that traditional organized crime people do.
These are the men with the connections. These are the godfathers. These are the bosses of a mob that has transformed itself from a bunch of feuding Sicilian gangsters into power brokers who control politicians and police.
I think that these guys who have been at it longer and better, they got a lock on something that nobody's ever had a lock on before, and that's political corruption and police corruption. Those guys couldn't operate, and I'm talking about your traditional organized crime, 2 months without police corruption and political corruption. It is impossible, but they got the lock on it. And that's why when you're talking to me like Colombian dope gangs and everything else, unless you got that lock, you're not going to survive, and they got it.
That lock on corruption can be as important to the Mafia as their use of violence. Today's Mafia bosses look like respectable businessmen. When a Mafia man's in legitimate business, he can display his wealth. He can pass himself off as a pillar of the community, while still running his criminal enterprises. Organized crime is the most profitable business in America. The Italian-American crime families control most of that business. They are now so deeply embedded in American society that the police, the prosecutors, and even the federal government seem unable to break the Mafia conspiracy.
From 1960 to 1983, with 20 years of investigation and prosecutions through Democratic and Republican administrations at the national level, with basically honest law enforcement, well-equipped law enforcement, not one of the 24 organized crime families has been destroyed. Repeat, not one of the major organized crime or minor organized crime families has been destroyed.
They're all alive and well and doing very well. They are still in narcotics. They are still in gambling. They are still fending their money and using their strong-arm tactics and their muscle in various legal businesses and other enterprises. Today, of course, there's a new industry. They're big in pornography. They're big still big in labor, in the vending machine business. And, of course, I would say in the area of narcotics, the totality of the picture has changed. For the first time now, they have some muscular rivals in the way of the Colombians, the Cubans, who are importing and distributing cocaine and marijuana throughout the United States. I would say that the Mafia still pretty much has the handle on the importation of and distribution of heroin to the United States. They have rekindled the old Sicilian connection, and that is one of the main sources from raw materials coming out of the Middle East and Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan area.
The opium poppy, for thousands of years a source of pain relief. Since ancient times, farmers have harvested its milky fluid by cutting open the poppy's seed pod. Today, the raw opium that is harvested in Iran, Pakistan and Afghanistan is converted into morphine and smuggled out to meet an ever-increasing demand. Much of the morphine is transported to Sicily, where the Mafia turns it into pure heroin. It is then smuggled into New York by Sicilian mafiosi who have time-honored links with their American counterparts, as recent trials have proved.
I can simply tell you that a large number of the defendants who have been tried for heroin smuggling here in New York, where the heroin has been coming from Italy, are native-born Sicilians, either living here in the United States or traveling to the United States from Italy with the heroin. When we see cases, and there have been some in New York, in which members of the same family are operating both here in New York in terms of receiving the heroin and in Italy in terms of shipping the heroin, you have to say that if family members are involved, you have a closer network than you might if you had two strangers involved. It's a more organized venture between Italy and the United States.
Is there any other overlap, for instance, city or town or village that these people come from?
Frequently. Frequently, you will have a case in which people are not related by blood, but in which investigations show you that a number of the defendants were all born in little villages in Sicily, Trapani, Bagheria, Villa Grazia di Carini, a number of defendants who've taught us the names of those towns.
But it is in the city of Palermo, appropriately the birthplace of the Mafia, that the Sicilian connection is at its strongest. In an inconspicuous villa, the police stand guard over the latest heroin processing laboratory to be discovered in the Sicilian capital. Hundreds of pounds of morphine base imported from Asia have been discovered as a result of a tip-off. Expert chemists have been processing it into heroin worth millions of dollars on the streets of America, 200 times what it cost the Mafia to buy. Until the 1970s, the only criminal chemists who could do this work were Frenchmen. Today, the Mafia doesn't need that French connection anymore. It has chemists enough of its own. The police have captured the entire paraphernalia of a massive heroin smuggling ring, including an arsenal of guns to defend the laboratory not only against the police, but against rival mafiosi who might try to kill the operators and take over their racket. Sicilian mafiosi have killed police, prosecutors and judges who have dared to investigate their billion-dollar business in heroin. After one big heroin seizure, 60 mafiosi were arrested in New York and Sicily on charges of making or distributing heroin. They included men working with some of the most notorious mafia crime families, active on both sides of the Atlantic. Above all, the Gambino family of New York. The American mafia's old Sicilian connection was shown to be as strong as ever. These Sicilians were accused of taking part in a conspiracy which was smuggling heroin out of Palermo to New York. The Mafia usually smuggles its drugs through the port of Palermo on board freighters in packages addressed to friends and relatives across the ocean. But in this case, the smugglers' route started at Palermo Airport. Corrupt Alitalia staff helped the mafiosi get their heroin past customs and drug agents when the consignments arrived in New York. There are no bounds to the smugglers' ingenuity.
seen heroin come in to the United States in almost every way imaginable. I mentioned that we've seen come in coffee urns. Large espresso machines is what I'm talking about, smuggled in those kinds of machines. We've seen it come in false bottom suitcases, the sophistication of which, in terms of how the heroin is hidden, is really almost an art form. We've seen it hidden in traps that have been put in olive oil containers. We've drilled Parmesan cheese wheels and found heroin in there. We've seen them put into expensive cars, almost as if the very expense of the car would deter a customs officer from wanting to take it apart. Last year, we've seen smuggled into the United States over 100 pounds of heroin, the largest seizure to date in the United States. Was taken here in New York. Before that, in 1981-82, we had a number of seizures of 30 pounds, 40 pounds at a time, and yet I think anyone in law enforcement would tell you that that's a very, very small percentage of what the law enforcement officers estimate is coming into the country. And so when you talk about the market, you're talking about a tremendous, tremendous market for heroin in this country.
Heroin is still making fortunes for the organization whose bosses have ruled crime in America for 60 years. Men like the Sicilian who Americanized the Mafia, Charles Lucky Luciano. Men like Meyer Lansky, the financial genius who taught the Mafia families what to do with their criminal billions. Men like Vito Genovese, the killer who reinstated heroin as the #1 racket. Men like Sam Giancana, who helped put a president into the White House. Men like Carlo Gambino, the boss of bosses whose crime family still dominates New York City. And men like Tony Accardo, the Chicago godfather who's been part of the mob from the time of Al Capone to the present day. It was the informer Joe Valachi who first exposed the crime bosses and their secret society to the Senate in 1963. Since Valachi, other mafiosi have turned informer, like Los Angeles boss Jimmy Fratiano, the Mafia killer who found out the Mafia wanted to kill him.
Believe me, I'm not sad about testifying against them, you know. Like I say, the thing is no good, you know. It's just a guy that thinks that this organization is something good, they're crazy. Believe me. Like I say, if I knew what I knew today, they'd have never got me in no organization like this, believe me.
Herbie Gross, the Jewish fixer for the Mafia, who turned informer when the bosses turned against him.
I used to walk my cell and literally bang my head against the wall. Smart Herbie, what the hell did you let yourself into? These are animals. You can't reason with them. You can't talk to them. You can't even expect them to follow the rules, their rules. And I'm dead. I figured I'm dead because if worse comes to worse, whatever the final bottom line is going to be, they'll throw the Jew to the wolves.
Ray Ferrito, the hitman who waits for the Mafia's revenge. He wishes he had never betrayed them.
Now that I'm out and I'm back home and see what's happening to me, you know, not only financially, but family-wise, what it done to my family, my children, my brothers, my sisters, you know. To me, death would have been much better.
Ralph Picardo, the racketeer who turned against the Mafia but understands its deep-rooted appeal.
People like it. People love for it to be around them. They idolize it. They idolize the people that are the heads of it, like they're some kind of god. And they're not. They're lower than the lowest slime on earth.
Joey Cantalupo, who betrayed the crime bosses of New York and sent his closest friends to jail.
To me, I look at it as I might be a rat. I know I'm a rat. But what am I a rat against? I'm a rat against the bad. The people, the bad people in this world. To me, I did something good. I hurt these people who corrupt and hurt millions and millions of people. I've only done good.
What do you think lies ahead for you personally? You know, you've been through all this now.
Nothing. Just want to get out of here and live my life as much as I can.
I mean, you have a family life to look forward to.
That's correct, yeah.
And you think these guys will chase you all around the world?
If they find you, I don't think they're going to look for you. But let them find me. I'll take my chances. It's better than being dead, you know. If I'd have stayed out, I'd have been dead, right? So every day I'm living, I beat him out of something. You know, so...
Now, do you think with so many people going into the federal witness program that have testified against organized crime, that this thing will eventually be diminished, or will it just grow?
It never will be. The only thing that'll be diminished is the present people that are in the position of authority will be eliminated for another position, a person to take over that other person's position. They'll just continuously be recycled. It'll never end. That's why they call it our thing, something that will survive as long as man is on Earth.
A modern-day mafia boss is murdered by other mafia bosses. It's business as usual. For all its respectable fronts and influential connections, the mafia is still a conspiracy based on violence. Violence has kept the mafia at the top of organized crime in America for more than 50 years.
They put it together in the 30s. It is still together in the 80s. Look at it as a matter of history. In a war where merit counted, the Sicilians beat every single group. When the last accounting is in, the group that has the cohesion, the wealth, the access to violence, the access to counting and legal and other techniques, the access to political corruption, is La Cosa Nostra or the Mafia. That's a fact.
You've attributed to the Mafia such power that it makes it seem as if America, the whole of American society, is really in its grip.
You give me a telephone book and give me a little time and drop me in any town, and I'll show you what they're into. Any product you can pick out of that telephone book, they are in their grip, and they're in their grip very bad. Let me put it this way. You know, paint me as a nut or whatever anyone in this society wants to do, anywhere in the world. Until I see them walk into a number of state legislators and into the Congress of the United States and start locking up people on the floors of those hallowed bodies, I don't believe there's a serious effort to stop organized crime. That's how pervasive it is. And they will have to go into certain churches and arrest certain church people and everything else. That's how pervasive organized crime is. It's ingrained. It's part of our institution. I don't know if we could ever get it out. I doubt it.